I want to give you an insight into the life of a clergy member in the 21st century. When you walk into a room or you're introduced to somebody and they find out that you're a rabbi, people tend to act a little differently. First off, how can you be a rabbi? Yeah. Inevitably, you hear some sort of variation on the same theme. Rabbi, they'll say, I'm not a very religious person, but I'm a good person. Or the ever popular, my favorite, oh, you're a rabbi? That's so great. I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. I'll be honest. Most of the time, if I'm on a plane or I'm meeting someone for just a moment and they ask what I do, I tell them I work for some nonprofit organization. I don't go into detail. I work for a nonprofit because their eyes glaze over. I do it so that I can avoid the conversation about all the problems they had growing up in a Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, fill in the blank, whatever kind of home they grew up in. Because inevitably the story is always the same. The person felt stifled or judged and criticized for trying to find themselves, for trying to be themselves. The burdens of expectations they felt from their religion was just too much for them. So they left. Today, people are looking to loosen the shackles of religious dogma. We don't understand why religion would tell us that other people are less than us, that we have some monopoly on truth. And so, people are fulfilling their spiritual needs elsewhere through yoga and meditation, interactions with nature, various self-help books, other New Age philosophy, whatever they're doing a ton of different things, but not religion. Because people read the holy books, the holy works of the Torah and other religions, they see the violence done in God's name, and they wonder if religions have anything to offer this world except violence and pain. I used to do a Q&A every Yom Kippur afternoon in New Jersey when I lived there, and a man used to come every single year and say the same thing. What good is religion? All it does is kill people. I'll be honest. I see their point. For too long, religions have sought to silo themselves off, to seal themselves off from outside traditions. For too long, there's been a thought that wisdom is external to our own tradition or to anyone's own tradition. External wisdoms are somehow dangerous and provocative. In a time and place when we get to create playlists of only music we want to listen to, we don't have to listen to, this is going to date some of you, you don't have to listen to B-sides anymore, right? And we have video on demand at all times and in all places. It's hard for people to identify with a religion that sets up boundaries on them, that judges and draws black and white lines where they see gray. Too often, religion comes to symbolize a prison that instead of adding to our life, only confines us. And so, the famous refrain, I'm spiritual, but not religious. It's tragic. It's tragic that religion is seen that way, and it's not their fault. It's tragic that the dogma of religion has eclipsed its central message. It doesn't matter what religion. They all have the same central message. The word religion comes from the Latin word religare, which means to bind together. It's the same origin of the word ligament. The purpose of religion is to bind us together, to bind us to each other, to realize the responsibility we have to make each other's lives, not just those in our community, but everyone's life around us better. That's our job, and to bind us to something greater than ourselves. Judaism, or any religion, has the power to make our lives better. But we failed. Both religion and spirituality have the power to make us better people. All these pursuits, no matter their origin, seek the same thing. Whether it's meditation or prayer, whatever medium it is, they're all after the same thing, to connect us to something greater than ourselves, to engage our soul, and to help us transcend our ego and insignificance, to thin that layer between us and everything outside of us. There's a joke about a Jewish mother who travels all the way to Nepal to go to a Buddhist temple. And she's told she can say 3 words when she's there with the revered guru. She's going to get to the guru. She waits for hours. And finally she says, "Sheldon, come home." I'll let that sink in. If you look at the faculty roster of any meditation or yoga studio, or even the people that sign up, you'll see Steens and Bergs and Owitzes and Borstein and Cornfield and all of these names. You'll see how many Jews have left Judaism in the dust in pursuit of something that better fulfills their spiritual needs. The French philosopher, and I apologize, my French is not good, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin once said, the French guy once said, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience." The gap between spirituality and religion is an unnecessary one. Both are essential components of what it means to be a spiritual being, to live that life. But if we're paying attention and looking at all the empty seats, we see that people are separating themselves from religion. Across the board, all religions are dealing with the same dwindling numbers. The very definition of what it means to be a regular attendee of services has changed. It used to be, in any religion, Christian, Jewish, whatever, if you considered yourself a regular attendee, it meant you went every week. Now, even regular attendance is defined by either going every other week or even once a month. If we look at membership rosters of synagogues across the country, we'll see that people are choosing to not be a part of the Jewish people, to not be a part of the community. And here's the thing, it's not their fault. At the core of the problem is how the life of a synagogue is oriented. Most, if not all, North American synagogues revolve their weeks and calendars around Saturday morning services, and I'm not knocking if you like Saturday morning services, and I see some of you out there. You know what I'm talking about because you see the people that aren't coming anymore. We're asking people to pray to a God in which they may or may not believe. And for those that might even believe in some sort of deity, some sort of God, we're asking them to define God in a hierarchical way. We're asking them to think of God in the Middle Ages as a father and a king. And yes, it's gendered. Not as a partner, not as a lover, not as a confidant. And for many of us, this doesn't work. And so people pursue their own path. They seek spirituality outside of religion in a way that speaks to them. But there's a trap there too. There's a problem. The one thing that can be missing from a spiritual life of yoga, personal benefit, personal betterment, musar, self-help, meditation, the one thing that can be missing from these hikes and all of these other things is a sense of community. One of the traps of these individualistic spiritual pursuits is that they can create in us a solipsistic sense of the world. Meaning we're the only thing that exists. We spend so much time focusing on our breathing or making sure that we get better, making sure that we've read this book or that we become too self-centered and forget about the world around us. It's a trap to avoid. You know you've seen this. You've seen the person walk out of their yoga or meditation studio, throw their mat over their shoulder, and they head to their Prius with the coexist bumper sticker, right? Right? And then they cut off people in traffic and flip the bird all over the place. Yeah. This is where I bristle at the concept that someone is spiritual but not religious. When someone confesses to me that phrase, when they say they're spiritual but not religious, what I hear is that they're going to yoga, they're meditating, both things which I believe in, but they're failing to turn that spirituality into something greater. They're doing it inward and not out. They're not able to turn that feeling of spiritual fulfillment into a community. Personally, I consider myself both spiritual and religious. For me, spirituality without religion has a sense of selfishness to it. Yes, it's self-care, and that's important, absolutely. But without something that binds us to each other, it's incomplete. Many of you have children who attended university. For many of them, it was their first time away from home, free to make their own decisions spiritually. And chances are they came across an organization at their campus. What's it called? Hillel. That's right. Whether or not they went, I'll let you duke that out with them. Hillel. Hillel was a man who's regarded as one of the greatest teachers in the history of Judaism. Story after story tells of his wisdom and patience. Story tells us how it contrasts him to his longtime foil, this man named Shammai, who was impatient, brilliant, but impatient. Hillel has many famous teachings, and I'm going to go into all of them tonight, over the next hour and 45, no. Just want one. One of his best comes from Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our fathers. In it he says, Al tifrosh min hatzibur, ve'al te'amin ba'atzmecha ad yom motecha. Do not separate yourself from the community, and do not trust in yourself until the day you die. Do not separate yourself from the community. There are times when we need to look inward, when we need to hold those closest to us a little closer. If you've ever had a moment where you need a community, you know exactly what I mean. We all need a place. That's the value of community. To be our strength when we can't find the strength within us. Do not separate yourself from the community. Do not let small differences deny you of the beauty, the comfort, and the safety of your community. Both spiritual and religious communities, which are the same thing, both of them can and should bind us to each other. Both should come to remind. Here's the thing. And if you hear nothing else, I want you to hear this. The universe doesn't need you to take another yoga class. It needs you to take the amazing feeling you get from yoga, that fulfillment, and share that with someone by making their day better. The world doesn't need you to take another hike. It needs you to take the gratitude you feel for the beauty of this world and translate that into good acts. Maybe it means giving to the homeless person you see all the time on the exit ramp, but you're too uncomfortable to acknowledge. Maybe it means being of service in some other way. The purpose of spirituality and religion are the same. Both should open our minds and our hearts. Both spirituality and religion should open our hearts and minds, and if they don't, we're not doing it right. If going to shul, meditating, or improving myself doesn't translate into helping me become a better person, then I'm just doing it narcissistically. Here's where the next part of Hillel's quote comes in. Al ta'amin ba'atzmecha ad yom motecha. Do not believe in yourself until the day you die. It seems like an odd connection to make. Be a part of community and don't believe in yourself until you die. In truth, the two dictums are part and parcel of the same thing. When we're a part of a community, we can't believe completely in ourselves. There will be people in our community who challenge our beliefs and our convictions. When we get out of our echo chamber and engage in community, we'll be surrounded by others We're forced to admit then the reality that we don't have all the answers. Spirituality without religion is incomplete. As Pastor Lillian Daniels wrote in a piece, listen to this. This is the name of the piece. Spiritual but not religious? Please stop boring me. It's a little harsh, I know. But Pastor Daniels makes some interesting points. She says, there's nothing challenging about having deep thoughts all by yourself. What is interesting is doing the work in the community where other people might call you on stuff or disagree with you. Where life with spirituality or God gets rich and provocative is when you dig deeply into tradition that you didn't invent all for yourself. Right? When we're obligated to others. Living in community forces us to live life without armor. It demands that we see the divinity in all those with whom we disagree. When we listen to Hillel's comment of not believing in ourselves, we're doing the difficult work of allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. We're freeing ourselves from the burden of always having to be right. The process of seeking spirituality, if done correctly, will lead to times of emotional upheaval and will change our reality. It should challenge us, shake us to our very core, and that's when community can help us. Now, I want to address, if you'll indulge me for a moment, I want to address the people that aren't here. If you're watching this on live stream, if those of you who describe yourselves as spiritual but not religious, I'm not mocking you. If your mom or dad sent you this link, first off, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that they made you watch this. But I'm also sorry. I'm sorry that your needs haven't been met by Judaism. I get it. I really do. Sometimes the dogma is too much. But there is beauty here. There is spirituality to be found in our tradition, I promise. We can explore it together as a community. We should be able to create a community that sees religion and spirituality as pillars upon which we stand. We need to better ourselves, both as individuals and as a community, to fulfill our soul's need to experience transcendent moments. And we need to feel the responsibility to other people that only exists in community. The obligation when we bind ourselves to another. It's my hope and prayer that all those who... Kamar Khatima Tova. Shana Tova.